So thank you very much for the previous panel. Very good. Many of you will know David from TriOptima, I'm sure. David White is Head of Product Management. Is that
Product Marketing.
Product Marketing.
Yeah.
So very well equipped to brief us this morning on how TriOptima is evolving its service to operate in this new space. Obviously, I mean, many folks in the room will already be users of the TriOptima service around portfolio reconciliation. And that clearly has a significant asset to play into the dispute management space. So from your point of view, TriOptima's perspective, what do you see as the challenges of these new regulations?
Well, I think you have to look at it as two separate challenges, basically, IM and VM. IM, I guess I'll come back to you later because I know you want to ask me about what we're doing with Acadiasoft there. But yeah, that's new, that needs to be calculated, amounts need to be agreed. It hasn't been done before. Infrastructure, systems, processes, all of those things need to be built and put in place before September for the biggest guys, and obviously cascading down to 2020. It's a massive challenge on the IM side. But variation margin, I think, has sort of been, it's sort of got less focus because it's not quite as sexy. But yeah, there are huge challenges there, and I think that the two biggest things, the first of which Bill touched on earlier, the fact that these regulations affect new trades only. So today, the collateral infrastructure processes, they're built to process one variation margin call between us if we're trading. In the new world, potentially that could rise to as much as 4, which that will be what we're calling legacy VM, so variation trades that you've traded before the compliance state, which you keep under your old collateral management agreement, your old CSA, that you're happy with the way that it works and you want to continue that. And that's I'll pause for a moment there. You do have a choice with regards to how you collateralize going forward. You don't have to have this split where you keep the old trades and collateralize them in the old manner that you always have. You can move everything over to a CSA that's aligned to the rules and process them under the one agreement on the one margin call. And that's something I think the industry is going around trying to do now, is trying to establish, all right, where does it make sense for me to have a split, or where does it make sense for us to just margin under one new regulatory aligned agreement? And that's a huge amount of work in itself. You may have your own view. You've got to get the counterparty agreement to that view as well. So it's not just an analysis on your side; it's a negotiation as such with your counterparty. So, so you're going to perhaps have 2 margin calls there. If your IM, if your trading relationship falls under the scope of IM, that's a 3rd. And then if you've got an independent amount before, that's a 4th. Your collateral management system will have to calculate all of those amounts in parallel together against the one counterparty every single day. That is not, the system hasn't been built that way, so fundamental change needs to take place. So I think that's big challenge number 1. Sort of a byproduct of that to a certain extent, but sort of driven by the sort of the detail of the rules is the increase in margin call volumes, which again, David and Bill, you've touched on. A DTCC white paper about sort of 6 months, a year ago, I can't remember what it was, but they forecasted that margin call volumes are going to increase by between 500 and 1,000%. That is, that's a huge amount. And I don't think the industry is in a position where you can hire hundreds of people to throw at the problem. So efficiency and a shift away from the process. I think the collateral management market has been a market where inefficiency has thrived. There's multiple different systems doing parts of the process, and people allocated doing parts of the process. That really needs to come together in order to cope with these increased volumes. Now, everyone talks about the increased volumes, but where are they coming from? I think the multiple call structure is one, where you're going from 1 to perhaps 4. But then, the detail within the VM side of the rules themselves. So, collateralization is mandatory. There's still uncollateralized businesses out there. That won't be able to happen anymore. So obviously that's going to drive volumes up. the daily frequency. There's a lot of agreements out there that perhaps fairly only have calculations on a monthly or weekly basis, and move them to daily, the margin call volumes go up exponentially as well. And then there's zero-based thresholds. So there's a lot of thresholds out in the industry where people have a certain amount of trades that sit below that threshold. Now, if you strip those away, everyone has to, as soon as you put a trade on, day 2, you're going to have to be exchanging collateral. And that's going to drive up volumes significantly as well.
So in the interest of time then, so TriOptima has clearly established a strong position around the port rec space.
Yeah.
How have you built out to help to solve some of these challenges?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think portfolio reconciliation is the bedrock of collateral management. Collateral management, when you boil it all down, is about agreeing what trades you have with each other, what value they are, and then exchanging an amount to protect yourselves against default. So, the portfolio reconciliation really is the bedrock of collateral management. So for a long time, we've had ambitions to move into collateral management, and we've sort of moved around trying to think how best to do that. But I think these rules have really been a sort of a kick up the bum and sort of pushed us to focus on a certain area, and I think that's been really helpful. So, I think here it is. So we have brought TriResolve Margin to market. TriResolve Margin is a web-based ancillary service which sits on top of TriResolve. And what we're really hoping to do is what you talked about earlier, David, is this is a direct response to the increased volumes, the multiple call structure, the strain on the process, is to shift, is to bring all these systems together, all these processes together into the one place, and shift the focus from the process itself to exceptions. So, I worked in collateral management back in the day, ran a team in London for one of the big banks, and we'd have a collateral management system in-house built. It was okay, but I'd have a team of these poor blokes that would look through the list of requirements and make sure, manually, and make sure that there was no big swings that looked out of the ordinary. That's pretty inefficient. They would then copy and paste the amounts that we wanted to call off counterparties into an email. They'd send it to Joe at Deutsche Bank. Joe at Deutsche Bank's having a coffee, turns into a long lunch. The call goes unanswered. They then have to phone up. Where's my reply? That's ridiculous. And then they realise that apparently, they've actually got a dispute. So what do? They then speak to someone else who then is reconciling it in the trade level data in TriResolve to try and find where the dispute is coming from. And then they have a break management system, which they then, because Dave on the middle office in rates has to look at a curve. So all of these different systems, they need to come together so we can automate the process, and that's what this does. So just to walk you through what it will look like and what's possible. Because we have the trade level data in TriResolve on the calculating the variation margin amount is easy. We're reconciling the collateral balances in a lot of instances. We're reconciling the trade data. We're therefore receiving 2/3 of what we need. We just need the CSA details to then sort of make up the third part, so we can look across that.
So you are bringing in CSA information?
Yeah, and we'll reconcile those CSA details too, because that's an important thing. And an important part of automating the process. There's no point in automating the process right to the point where you're going to agree, and then the disputes coming from a difference in the terms of your CSA. So we'll calculate the variation margin amount, and then we'll do our first bit of automation. So stage 1, reconcile the CSA details. Are there any differences there? If there are, flag it up, exception. But if not, next stage, data quality checks, and this is a byproduct of having the portfolio reconciliation data. If I've uploaded my trades, and David, you have as well, and I've got 100 trades with a maturity date in 10 years fall off my side of the portfolio, but they haven't fallen off yours, then there's something wrong there, I think. So flag that up. If not, then go to the next stage. And then we're going to build a lot of sort of rule-based criteria. So I think most people probably have risk thresholds across their margin desks. So we're fine with every margin call going out that's under 2 million. Anything above, we want to double check. So why not have rule-based criteria which margin calls go through before they're released. Again, it takes that manual work out of it and speeds up the process. And then, assuming it passes all these things, it then goes into electronic margin message exchange. So, and this is where part of our collaboration with Acadisoft comes into play, removing that ridiculous email process and automating. So the idea is that people come in the morning and you have got half of your margin calls agreed, done, and you focus on, as you said, the exceptions. And of course, we want to sort of help there. And for a long time, and this is obviously a direct link back into TriResolve at this stage, when you've got your disputed amounts. TriResolve for a very long time has been really good at telling you where your dispute is extremely quickly. So it's my credit, single name, 5-year tenor, we've got a big difference there. So that's great. But what we've tried to do is sort of automate and take this one step further. So what we've done is sort of laid some algorithms, and what we're looking at is trade data over time. So you'll be able to see that the credit trades are causing you the problem. There's a 10 million diff there, great, but what is causing that problem? So if we can see your prices compared to your counterparty like that moving over time, we'll automatically bucket that to a systemic difference in pricing. If we look at it over time and there's an MTM swing, we'll flag that up. Stale MTM, i.e. the MTM hasn't changed much apart from the small FX rate or something, we'll flag that up. So you will come in, you'll see the disputes, and you know what is causing your dispute. And you can automatically create rules to then allocate that to certain people in the firm. So Dave in the middle office, you no longer have to send him an email. He's got a queue of differences, systemic pricing differences that have automatically been assigned to him in the morning too. So we really are speeding up the process and focusing on this section. And then hopefully you get to the point where you're agreeing most of your calls every day, and then we'll try and automate that agreement of collateral too. So if someone pledges a certain type of collateral, is it in line with your CSA agreement? If not, reject it. Concentration checks, we'll do wrong way risk checks, and we'll also create as we did on the margin call going out, we'll also create rule-based criteria which you can accept on the pledge and accept side as well.
Okay. So David, we need to draw this to a close because we need to move on to our final speaker. Thank you very much. That's been very helpful.
Thanks.